Hello. Hi, Madison. Thank you for coming back. As you're coming in, please say hello. I've got a couple terms that I've listed up there, and we're going to get started. I think I'm going to start off by showing some examples of what we were talking about the other day. We started talking about types of plants. And of course, we touch on plants in earlier grades. Oh, by the way, say hi to Harold. Hi, Harold. We touch on plants earlier in the day or earlier in the week when we were talking about type of plants. You touch on it in elementary school. Now, what we're going to do is going to get just obviously a little bit more in depth, and you'll get more in depth in high school too. So I'm actually going to show you a type of some types of plants. First of all, I don't know if anybody remembers anything from the other day that was even on, but we talked about vascular plants and non-vascular plants. So the word vascular, you have any idea what the word vascular means? And I got some examples I'm going to be bringing over here. So when I think of vascular, I think of the heart system, and it's basically the same thing where a plant has ways of transporting water and nutrients and getting rid of waste. And in our bodies, our blood system does that for us. That's our vascular system. When we eat and drink, our body turns that into energy that we can use and is transported throughout our body. So I'm going to give you a couple examples. Mr. Fosnight's going to love this one. Where he grew up is at one time was the celery capital of the world. And so I've been doing a little experiment at home, something that I read online that we could do, and I wasn't aware that it would come true, but we cut celery and used it in a meatloaf. And we read that you could actually take this and put it back in water and that it would start to grow again. So all this growth that you see from here up, that was all chopped off. This is all new growth that's coming up here in less than a week. Has not been that long. And all we did was put it in a container that had water in it. Remember, if you're joining us, say hi in the comment line so we know who's here. We are going to be keeping track of who's visiting us. And that's actually going to end up being part of your grade. So get the word out on that. So this is all new growth just from putting this in the water. So this is an example of a vascular plant. A plant that takes in water and nutrients, and that has to come up through these parts. They're kind of like veins. Carmelo, thanks for coming back. They're kind of like veins in the sense that they transport material. We call them xylem and phloem, and I'll get that into that a little bit more in a minute. All I did was put this back in water, and I actually have two of them growing. We cut this up and made snacks. I still have some here. And we just put it in water, and it's already starting to grow. So why pay the grocer when you can regrow your own? Pretty cool little experiment that we started when school was called off. So this is a vascular plant. This plant has what's called xylem and phloem, which are like arteries that the water it gets transported from the bottom up to the top. So let's look at some non-vascular plants that we can look at. I need to set myself up a little bit more organized here. One of the things that I'm going to show you, and it might be hard to see on the camera, this is bark off of a little tree. And I'm going to kind of stick that right in the camera. Looks kind of ugly. It's really like a light green stuff. I've showed this to classes in the past. You can actually peel this off of here. And the bark, if you look on the inside, this is actually the bark off of a tree, off of a branch of a tree. And so I've picked a little bit of it off, okay? It's just a tiny little speck. It's kind of hard to see. If we were in class, I could pass this around. You could feel it, feel its texture. Right now it's kind of soft because it's been really damp, really wet outside. But this is non-vascular, okay? There are no xylem and phloem in this. This grows on the side of trees typically, and it doesn't get any bigger or thicker than that normally. And so this is considered an example of non-vascular. It'll grow on little branches. It'll grow on whole trees. Obviously, this is the easiest thing for me to bring in. So that's a non-vascular plant. Here's another example of something that's non-vascular. And I got to try to do this without getting everything dirty. So let me put something over my keyboards. This is some moss. Not very thick. The bottom of it kind of has just a slight layer of dirt. This was actually growing on concrete. And so I'll give you a close-up like that of that piece of moss there. It's really cool. It's soft. If any of you guys get a chance to go out and just feel it, look for it, touch it, feel it, it's really soft. Really cool to walk on your bare feet. Like walking on a carpet. Hey, Tristan, thanks for coming. And so this is another example of a plant that is non-vascular. The water and nutrients is absorbed right into where it is needed. It doesn't have to travel distance. If you think about that, boy, was this a good decision to put this paper over my keyboards. I got kind of a mess here. Once in a while, I do things right. Give me a second to clean up. So the moss is non-vascular. The lichen, which is spelled L-I-C-H-E-N, that's growing on this thin piece of bark, that is non-vascular. There's not these arteries. When we talk about this, like I'm regrowing this celery, Tristan, you didn't get a chance to see this, but we cut this celery, I cut it into stalks, and you put this in water and it'll regrow. And so this is already sprouting up, and this is less than a week. And so I'm interested to see how this experiment continues. I got it sitting, I'm in the sunroom. See all those windows behind me. We're in the sunroom, so it's getting plenty of sunshine. And in this type of plant, you have little tubes called xylem and phloem. So that is a vascular plant. The other two I showed you were non-vascular. And so there's a couple parts to the vascular plants that I wanted to talk to you about. And I mentioned them the other day. The xylem brings stuff in. The phloem moves food around to the leaves, but the xylem are kind of like the main arteries. And one cool thing that I could probably do, let me see if I can find a piece of celery that's going to work for this. It's hard to see, but if you took a piece of celery and cut it, you actually can see some little tubes there, some little channels, and that's one of the paths that the water actually travels to get up into the plant and to get to the leaves. This looks good enough to eat. No. All right, I'll save that for later. All right, so you know what I always say to my daughter? Are you going to eat that? I'll eat that. So phloem moves the food from around the leaves into other parts of the plants, gets rid of any waste. It's 11:13 actually, and the xylem actually brings the water in. Okay, so one of the big things about how that works, because you're saying, some people have said, well, how the heck does that water get from, think about a tree that's 150 foot tall. That water's got to get from in the ground up to the top of those plants. And so there's a couple things that go on. And first of all, there's this concept of adhesion. Anybody ever heard the word adhesion before? Most of us probably have. Anybody know what adhesion means? Just type it in the line if you know what adhesion means. And the second concept is called capillary action. Capillary action helps explain, along with adhesion, help explains how water actually gets up into plants. So I don't have any responses other than you guys talking to each other. Just like being in class, isn't it, Mr. Fosnight? So adhesion is the idea. Matter of fact, that's what we call tape. Tape, we call it adhesive tape. When we want something to stick together, we call it adhesive tape. Adhesion is that same idea, and it's the attraction between unlike molecules. Water is going to be attracted to itself, but the fact that there's adhesion allows it to kind of stick to the walls of the xylem and phloem and move around. So what gets that water up into the tree, up into the plant, in some cases hundreds of feet into the air? It's something called capillary action. Capillary action is the tendency of water to rise up through tubes. Okay, and so every plant that is a vascular plant, whether it's a shrub, a tree, a flower, a vegetable, anything in that category, uses capillary action, which is just a natural tendency for that water to rise up into a thin tube. There's actually kind of a gravitational force that kind of pulls it up. It's really kind of cool, and I'm going to have you guys, well, we normally do an experiment in class, and I may have you guys do this, I don't know. But every year we would get white carnations and put food coloring in water, and it gives us an opportunity to actually see this in action. If you're able to do that, you know, we're supposed to not be traveling anywhere, and a lot of things are closing down. I can probably post some pictures, which I'll work on posting some pictures for you to see what we did last year. If we're only out for the couple weeks that we're planning, great, we can do it when we get back. But it's a really cool opportunity for you guys to actually see the xylem and phloem in action, to see that capillary action that's drawing that water up into the plant. All right, so trying to think what haven't I touched on? Trees and trees. Let's talk about types of trees, okay? And again, this is a review. I don't think anybody that's here today was with us on Tuesday. And so if anybody was, it's just a quick review to you. But most of us know typical plants that are around us. Okay. Oh, by the way, I have another example here. I forgot about this. This is another example of a vascular plant. This is a basil, I think. I don't know, something my wife planted and had in the windowsill, and I just grabbed it. This will be some spices for cooking. And another, boy, does that smell good? Another example there. All right. So I do have examples. One example of a coniferous plant. I went for a walk and I found this. As you can see, these are actually needles on here. Needles, they're very flat. Okay. This is an arborvitae. It is a type of evergreen, what we classify as an evergreen. It stays green or a shade of green all year round, okay? And so its seed pods, let's see if we can get a picture of this seed pod here. I have some others. Right there where my finger is, that's one of their seed pods, and their seed pods are actually little tiny cones. And so I'm going to try to put that in the camera there. And you can see that it looks like just a cute little baby pine cone. Well, inside this pine cone, where these little leaves of the pine cone are, that's where the seeds are. So this is how a coniferous plant or tree, how it reproduces by spreading its seeds. Cones fall to the ground. Animals will move them around, maybe some birds or some wind will carry the seeds away. And when the season starts in the springtime, they can grow. So that's an example of a coniferous plant. Again, it's just a miniature cone. We've all seen pine cones. Anything that has a cone on it is a coniferous plant. These are very flat. They're needles. Any other tree, a typical tree that has a leaf on it, is called a deciduous. And I spelled that in the beginning. If you look, I put two terms up there, coniferous and deciduous. So a deciduous tree is a tree that blooms in the springtime. As a matter of fact, I was outside this morning. I can even look out my window. Things are actually starting to bloom. I don't know. We are at springtime now. So things are starting to bloom. You can see little tiny buds. And what will happen in the fall? What's the why question you got up there? All right. So anyways, in the fall, what happens to most trees? They lose their leaves, right? And so what they actually do, as I've got another term up there, anybody know what that term means? Pronounced dormant, D-O-R-M-A-N-T. This is a common term that you're going to see as you move forward in your academic life and science. Dormant. Anybody know what dormant means? All right. It basically means asleep. Okay. When you go to college, you stay in a college dorm, right? It's basically calling it a sleeping place. Your college dorm is a place for you to sleep. That's at least if you're serious about your college. So dormant means that trees actually they're basically kind of going to sleep in the wintertime. All right. And so deciduous plants, deciduous trees go dormant or sleep in the wintertime. Now they're starting to wake up. There's warmer temperatures. There's more sunlight. They're starting to get buds on leaves. I noticed some weeds are starting to come up, which I'm not excited about the weeds, but I'm happy to see things happening. Now, there are other types of plants. I gave you an example of some non-vascular like the moss and the lichen. So what do you guys need to do, first of all, and what questions do you have? In your paper packets, you basically have 2 homework assignments. Those need to be completed, okay? In addition, there is a Quizlet on Google Classroom, along with a Google Doc that you need to fill out with your with 5 vocabulary words that you are having difficulty with. If you're having difficulty with more than 5, I want you to write 5. But if there's only 5 that you're having difficulty with, then just write a minimum of 5. And then don't forget to submit that. You got to hit the submit button or I can't see it and grade it. So don't forget to do that. There's another assignment that I'm going to put up momentarily when I get off with you guys. That's going to be to fill you in on the plant types, to back up what we just talked about over this live stream today. And that's going to be due, I'm having stuff due Monday at midnight. Okay. And there's a reason for that, is because Tuesday is going to be my next broadcast. So here's what I want you guys to do. Here's your job. Number 1, get your assignments that I put out there done. I'll have that second one up momentarily. Number 2, get the word out to people in your class. I'm assuming most of you guys are on your cell phones, and that's fine. You need to get this instruction on this live chat. We are keeping track of who's joining us. And as far as I'm concerned, and I haven't confirmed this with Mrs. Yingling, but as far as I'm concerned, the people that are joining us are going to get points for that. Whether they're regular classroom points or bonus points, I don't know, because some people do have technology problems. But those of you who are communicating, make sure you're communicating with other class members. So 10 o'clock, this is Tuesday and Thursday for science, 10 o'clock for 8th grade, 11 o'clock for 7th grade, 12 o'clock for 6th grade. So 8, 7, 6, 8 at 10, 7 at 11, 6 at 12. So get the word out to your classmates and your friends. You guys communicate a lot. I know you do. You know you do. And so just get that set up. All right. We got a few minutes. So if anybody has any questions, this would be a good time to ask questions? 5432. Any questions, anybody? Tell you, the one thing that I forgot to do was turn off my heater in here. Besides, it's probably making some noise that you can hear. I'm getting ready to start roasting, so I'm glad we're done in a minute. If you don't have any questions, that's fine. If you do, that's Harold. That's Harold. I'm putting my email up here. Hopefully I spelled it right. Feel free to email me if you guys have any questions. If you got some wonky sign on or email address, make sure I know who it is. And that'll help. Of course, that's not the only thing I have on my wall, Madison. I got other things hanging around here too. We got saws up there. We got steer antlers. I don't even remember what that is. And we got back there is an oxen. I can't think of the name of it that goes over the ox's neck. We got all kinds of things around here. All right. If you guys don't have any questions, we're gonna log off, and because it's 11:29. Thank you for showing up. Get the word out, and of course, we have to end with our song, which is going to start in about 3 seconds. 2, 1. This is our ending song for every session. All right. I hope you guys are staying safe. Don't go out unless you have to. Wash your hands after you pick your nose. And yeah, I had to go there. Don't forget to email us if you have any troubles. All right. Take it easy.